Clean energy is the future for sure. We are still not able to produce enough energy through renewable sources yet. But why is it so, and how can we change that?
We introduced solar-powered street lights, cutting consumption by 5%. Then I had the government build green homes fitted with solar panels, making us more energy independent.
The panels contain a lot of rare commodities, and you can save a lot of energy if you use recycled materials.
We run off hydro power or wind power, so the electricity we have is sustainable and renewable. So of course that's the most sustainable we can do.
When it transforms and translates into results that is tangible, they can see the difference that it makes to their environment. It's a huge thing.
Big cities were once synonymous with dreams, opportunities and the good life. But is that still the case? Hello and welcome. I am Sadhika Tiwari and you're watching Eco India. But cities now remind us of traffic, poor air quality, bad sanitation, concrete and little to no greenery. But now these are our cities and it is our responsibility to figure out ways to improve our city life. If you agree with this thought but wonder what we can do, this episode might have some answers to you. Let's start with the city we are in right now, Delhi. And since it is my city, I can safely tell you that the problems here are many. Poor air quality is probably the biggest one. A large proportion of air pollution has to do with the amount of waste. To be precise, with certain types of waste disposal systems and waste dumps. Delhi relies on waste incineration for its waste disposal and power generation, and this has consequences.
Dev Kumar Bansal should be happy. For 12 years, he's been living in Jasola Vihar, a leafy neighborhood in South Delhi. But first impressions can be deceiving.
See any of the plants around here, see how much dust is there. If I leave my car outside in the morning, I'll see a layer of dust all over it.
The cause is likely here, just 3 kilometers from Bansal's home. The Timarpur Okhla waste incineration plant processes municipal waste into electricity, almost 2,000 tons of it every day. Investigative journalist Maria Abi Habib wrote a report about it for the New York Times and made some grave discoveries. Working with the Indian Institute of Technology and Johns Hopkins University, soil samples and air quality around the plant were examined over 4 years and compared to other residential areas.
In terms of nasty heavy metals that really affect your quality of life and your health, we found in huge quantities around the plant. Whereas at the control area 9 kilometers away, we did not see that level of lead, arsenic, etc.
In her article, also published online, the elevated pollutant levels are clearly documented in black and white. The toxic metal cadmium was alarmingly high, as were manganese, arsenic, lead, and cobalt. According to her investigation, this has already had health consequences for people living in the surrounding areas.
We spoke to the gynecologist who Dr. Mishra, who had lived or who had worked in the Sukhdev Vihar neighborhood right next to the plant. And she had been there practicing in that neighborhood since 1999. And she said, since this plant came online about 12 years ago, I have never witnessed this level of miscarriages.
The journalist estimates that about 1 million people are directly affected by the plant's impact. Timarpur Okhla is a joint partnership between Jindal Urban Infrastructure Limited and the Delhi government. The National Green Tribunal and the Delhi Pollution Control Committee have imposed fines on the company multiple times, but nothing has changed. Quite the opposite. Since the article was published, a statement from the plant's management has appeared on their website, claiming that they comply with all legal regulations. Our requests for interviews with the company and authorities went unanswered. Citizen and activist Bhavreen Kandhari is calling for the closure of waste incineration plants in Delhi. She sees a particular risk in unsorted waste.
We are failing in our solid waste management rules. We are failing on segregating waste, which is extremely important. The moment you segregate waste and then you bring in that last maybe 2 to 3% of waste that cannot be now either recycled or upcycled or composted, that comes and gets incinerated. It's all in control. But right now, bringing mixed waste here and burning it is hazardous in every way. You're breaking every environmental rule, basically.
The company's promotional video presents Timarpur Okhla as a modern waste-to-energy facility that carefully separates waste before processing it into electricity. Only then, they claim, are pollutant levels low and efficiency high. However, the New York Times article cites a now-deceased manager who revealed that environmental violations occur frequently and safety measures are routinely ignored. Footage from activist Neelam Ahluwalia from 2021 further confirms this. Fly ash from the Timarpur Okhla power plant was dumped near residential areas. Waste pickers still find toxic metals in it, which they sell for a few cents. And even today, 4 years later, nothing seems to have changed in the handling of fly ash, as Maria Abi Habib observed during her research.
They were taking the ash in open bed trucks, winding their way through Delhi. We were watching morning commuters trying to rush to work with the ash billowing from the truck into their eyes. Same thing with children. And then they were just dumping it like that right into neighborhoods with no precautions.
Waste-to-energy plants with effective flue gas purification are considered environmentally friendly and sustainable methods of processing waste, which is why companies like Timarpur Okhla can earn money on the international carbon credit market for every megawatt of electricity they generate. However, environmental organizations like GAIA regularly protest against the practice. When the Jindal Group was establishing the plant, the carbon credit market had collapsed. But now it started to pick up again. So they're hoping to generate more revenue from the plant now by expanding its capacity, since they couldn't earn much from it back then. The undeniable truth is that Delhi has a waste problem. And waste-to-energy plants like Timarpur Okhla exacerbate the megacity's already critical air pollution, despite their eco-friendly claims. For residents living close to these facilities, the consequences are painfully evident.
While this problem seems too big for citizens to solve, there is much that we can do to control the waste that goes into these incinerators. India generates at least 20 million tons of waste that either ends up in landfills or goes unaccounted for. However, some women in Chennai are changing this one household at a time. From WhatsApp nudges to neighborhood composters, they are showing how small steps can lead to big transformations. And we all have something to learn from them.
What's happening here is a half-yearly activity in this household. You see, for over 6 months, Usha and her family carefully set aside household items like plastics, electronic items and newspapers instead of discarding them in the bin.
Honestly, I didn't find it too hard to do. I found it to be very rational. I started this because if I can't segregate the waste from my house, how can I expect someone else to?
Now they're taking all of this to a waste collection drive organized by ROKA, which is residents of the Kasturba Nagar Association in Chennai. The Welfare Association was set up in 2019 with the aim of ensuring all households in Kasturba Nagar were segregating waste properly. But not everybody was on board like Usha. ROKA Secretary Janani Venkatesh says that the biggest challenge has been changing people's attitudes.
We pay tax, so why should we segregate? Or it is not our job. There are conservancy workers specially employed for this job.
So these were the questions that were put across to us, and over the years we have managed maybe quite a good percentage of people into understanding if that 1 kg waste at household is managed, it will be easier for the city to manage segregated waste rather than unsegregated waste.
Chennai city generates roughly 6,200 metric tons of waste every day. To deal with this, hundreds of micro-composting centers that handle wet waste and material recovery centers that handle dry waste are set up across the city. But they're not operating to their full potential, says OKP Research and Advisory's Executive Director, Paroma Roy, who has been actively involved with the ROCA team here in Kasturba Nagar.
They can function efficiently and you can completely take advantage of the capacity of these processing centers only when waste is segregated at source. What we realized through our research work is that a large part of the waste that is generated and collected, it just goes to the dump yards because they are simply unable to process this in the micro-composting centers or the dry waste processing centers.
Janani puts in a lot of effort to sort everything perfectly. But different studies have shown that only 20 to 45% of the population in Chennai separates their waste as carefully. The team put together the We Segregate project, where they set up infrastructural nudges in the community. These nudges were aimed at highlighting how people's actions are making a real difference to their surroundings and environment. This included initiatives like Punch the Plastic, where hooks installed in 40 buildings across 3 streets in the locality are used to effectively collect uncontaminated multi-layer and soft plastics. Nearly 100 kilograms of plastics have been diverted in the first 6 months. The collected plastics are then sorted and baled at the aggregator and sent to the recycling center, where they will be made into boards for furniture and other household items. The most successful initiative, however, is the 3 community lane composters that have been set up in the neighborhood. The conservancy workers who collect the waste door to door transfer about 25 kilograms of organic waste to each lane composter every day. A conservancy worker mixes this waste along with coco peat in a 3:1 ratio and then transfers it to the lane composter. The resulting compost is distributed among residents for use in their gardens.
So when we started distributing the compost, the residents were really happy and they in fact approached us to ask us as to how to start it in-house, in their apartment or in their house. That is one thing. We also saw that the segregation levels were increasing with the community composting project. It also made them understand the need for waste management, why segregation was important, because it was happening right in front of their houses.
Meanwhile, Usha believes that the success of the Punch the Plastic and the lane composting projects is down to ROCA team's constant monitoring and campaigning efforts.
They did it beautifully, thanks to WhatsApp. They started a group and sent messages. Whenever people didn't cooperate, they would take a picture of the dustbins and send it in the group saying, "You have not done it today, kindly cooperate." Some people were sensitive about it, but when they started seeing reason and doing it again.
All of the waste collected at the waste collection drive is sent to the recyclers, Wasted 360 and Recycle Mart in the city. During this drive alone, they've collected 7.6 tons of unwanted items for recycling.
Today I'm very happy and proud to share that ROCA has more than 150 members and regular volunteers, close to 5 or 6 of us, to cater to 1,000 households, and we like to expand and also inspire other communities to emulate from us.
The Kasturba Nagar model is successful as it includes key partners in the waste management process. It's residents, contractors, officials, research organizations, and the association itself. This model at ROCA is aligned with the Chennai Corporation's Climate Action Plan for building a near-zero waste ward in the city. At its core, the idea is very simple. It's to help families form better habits over their present actions for a more promising future.
Another distinctive feature of cities, especially Indian cities, is construction and concrete everywhere. India is the second largest producer of cement in the world, and this contributes heavily to CO2 emissions. But can our cities grow greener as they grow taller? Germany is trying to explore some solutions that can help us build better by aligning architectural requirements with environmental needs.
Concrete everywhere. Grey has replaced green. We're constantly building more, higher, faster. Concrete production is responsible for around 8% of CO2 emissions worldwide. We're using sand, which is a dwindling resource, and various finite fossil resources. So we have to think about how we can build more sustainably. We need more greenery in our cities because they're overheating. If you think about it, architecture and nature are diametrically opposed. We build primarily to protect ourselves from wildlife or the weather, for example. And that means we're always destroying nature in some way when we build. But what if we worked with nature in our buildings instead of against it? A recent exhibition in Berlin, soon to be in Munich, showcases projects that do just that. How can trees grow together to form a structure? This question has fascinated architect Ferdinand Ludwig for 20 years. His vision is to merge architecture with nature and is constructing a kind of treehouse in the city. You have to work a lot with others, as it's interdisciplinary, like botanists, forestry scientists, civil engineers, ecologists. We all work together to pool our knowledge from different disciplines so it can be used in the design process. A pilot project in southern Germany shows what a building made of trees could look like. After 12 years, the plane tree cube is over 10 metres high and taller than the neighbouring kindergarten. The children use the shady space inside to play. Otherwise, it's home to insects and birds. The trunks of the young plane trees have branched out and grown together. The architects check their growth regularly. Plane trees were planted on all 6 levels at the same time, each in its own planter box. The idea is that the plane trees outgrow their planters and interconnect with the plane trees further up. They fuse together and gradually grow into one unit. Then they can remove the boxes. They planted more than 1,000 plane trees because, like with many urban trees, some of the seedlings died from disease or frost. In the years to come, the treetops will grow together to form a roof. A quicker option might be fungus. This igloo hut is made of wood and fungus panels. The surface is soft to the touch, but the panels are robust. So how do you create a building material from fungus? Here too, nature is the inspiration. Tinder fungus likes to grow on deciduous trees, attaching itself to the wood. Biologist Lisa Stelzer helped work on the fungi house, cultivating tinder fungus in the laboratory. It's so hard that she needs a saw to cut through it. The fungus is great for building because through the mycelium, the root structure of the fungus that grows underground, residues are brought together, and that interlinking creates a more stable material. That makes it ideal for the developers of the fungi house. The collective of scientists, architects and artists grows fungi cultures and mixes them with various other materials, always including organic waste like wood shavings or millet. Then they press the mixture into shape. After a few weeks, they kill off the fungus by heating it. The material then remains solid. It's already used for insulation, but building with it is new. Over in India, the search for sustainable construction materials is growing more urgent. Architects in the Humanscapes project in southern India's Auroville are turning clay into homes that are easier to cool during hot summers. Up in the plains of northern India, Delhi chokes on pollution every winter, in part due to the burning of crop waste. But local builders are finding new ways to upcycle this waste into bricks. These agrocrete bricks are light, strong, and can be moulded for all kinds of uses. Back in Berlin, Indian entrepreneurs have developed a new material to replace the world's diminishing sand supplies. Made by upcycling hard-to-dispose mineral and mining waste, this artificial sand is lighter and stronger than traditional sand, all produced here in a factory without touching any riverbeds or coastlines. European pioneers have also begun working with materials like mud. Like Austria's Martin Rauch, who even produces larger projects with rammed earth walls. But mud brick buildings are otherwise rare here. It's a debatable privilege of the Western world that we no longer build with mud. It was replaced by concrete during the 19th century industrialization. But around 40% of the global population still lives in mud houses. We've just forgotten how to build this way. And nature offers a number of other materials like seaweed, which could also be suitable for construction. Even if research is still in its infancy, the projects on display show how architecture and housing could protect both the environment and us humans.
Chennai has an inspirational example of citizens putting in years of efforts to bring about some change. Every Indian city will have at least one water body which is dying and polluted. Chennai also had one such lake spread over 50 acres. Let's go meet the people behind the Chittalapakam Rising, a grassroots movement that transformed a dying lake into a thriving freshwater haven. How did they do this? And can their 4D strategy be a blueprint for saving other lakes? Let's dive into this inspiring story.
It's common for lakes in the Chennai metropolitan area to look more like sewers and garbage dumps. However, Chittalapakam Lake on the city's outskirts has proven to be an exception. This is the Chittalapakam Lake. Just 5 years ago, we could not even stand here. Garbage was piled up 20 feet high and 20 feet deep like a mountain. All spread over 4 acres. The stench was so bad, people avoided walking past here. The transformation began with a small group of deeply committed volunteers. When we started, the lake was in a very bad state. However, cooperation between local residents and the government has revived it, and it's now a freshwater lake. It's become a favorite spot for people as well as birds and animals. The NGO started in 2013 with just 3 people. But in 2019, when they organized a manual cleanup event, 1,500 people turned up. And the government stepped in with €2.5 million to help speed up the project. The lake's dissolved oxygen level has reached 4.8 milligrams per litre. For drinking water, this number should be around 5. In many of the lakes around here, the pollution is so high that the level of dissolved oxygen is routinely found to be below 2 milligrams per litre. The volunteers at Chittalapakam Rising have gained valuable experience over the years and have developed what they call the 4D plan to help other neighborhoods revive their own lakes. The 4Ds are
deflect, drain, desilt and deepen.
So the first step is to deflect by building a baffle wall to protect the lake from drainage. We then link it to a new drainage canal. The next step is to drain the lake completely to remove the polluted soil, trash and plastic. Once it's dry enough for us to be able to dig into the soil, we remove the polluted silt layer that contains remains of the sewage and other substances. And then we have to excavate the bottom of the lake to between 4 and 8 feet, which helps in water storage throughout the year and increases its ability to recharge groundwater, which is a positive side effect. 5 kilometers away, Nanmangalam Lake faces similar problems as the Chittalapakam Lake once did because of improper waste disposal. A group of residents here is beginning their own cleanup drive to prevent the lake from dying out. We started this cleaning process about 13 weeks ago. 10 years ago, this Nanmangalam Lake was used by the people as a freshwater source. But today, because of the fast pace of housing and other construction, the lake has turned into a drain. The water here was so polluted until 2 months ago that we couldn't even stand here. The cleanup has removed the stench here, and that itself is a big step forward. People around each lake should come together and take the initiative to save their lakes. The government has proved itself ready to do their part as well. If the people are determined to save nature, change will not be difficult. As Chennai's population grows, restoring its lakes will be a key element in the city's strategy to secure its water supply for the coming generations.
That's all for today's episode. The path to a greener future requires us to rethink the solutions that we currently rely on. What are the steps you think we can take to make a big difference? Do let us know. You can email us or reach out to me directly on my social media handles. I will see you next week. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Namaskar.